We play and call it work.
Hey folks, Janene from MiniWarGaming here with another how-to video for you. In today's video, we're going to start a new model. I had some requests to do something that wasn't Games Workshop, so we're going to be doing this Skarre Queen of the Broken Coast model. I also had a request to show you how I do different skin tones. So today we're going to be starting with the skin, and we're going to do a more non-traditional skin tone, kind of more of an olive skin tone versus the traditional very pale skin tone. If you have suggestions for what you'd like to see in future videos, go ahead and leave them down below in the comments. Now this model's been primed black and then airbrushed black as well. I did this just because it's going to make some of the later steps much easier. So we're going to be concentrating on highlighting up versus shading down. The first color we're going to use is Doombull Brown. I picked this brown because it has a lot of red tones to it, which are going to complement the peachy tones that we're going to use later to highlight. We're also going to be mixing this with a drop or two of Lamian Medium to thin it out. I usually just use the end of my brush and put a few drops in and then quickly mix it all together. Now I'm going to apply this color to the entirety of her face, making sure that I get the bottom of her chin and any neck that's exposed. I also want to get the area that's bare on the top of her chest, and then she also has a little bit of midriff that I want to make sure I get with this color as well. Because we mixed in the Lamian Medium, we're going to have to do a couple coats to make sure that we get a nice coverage of this color, but it's also going to make it a lot easier to get each layer very smooth, so in the end it ends up making a better product. You can also see that I'm not afraid of slopping over onto some of the other areas to make sure that I get a nice coat on the entirety of the skin. When I plan my models, I try and paint them in layers so that I do the bottom layer first, and then I can clean it up by doing the layer on top of it later. Once we have a nice coat of the Doombull, we're going to move on to our next color, which is Scrag Brown. Now I'm also mixing this paint with Lamian Medium, which I'm going to do for all of my colors even if I don't necessarily show it on screen. And this is our first step in building up a highlight. We're going to be putting this over almost the entirety of the skin, but we want to make sure that we leave a few areas where we keep that Doombull Brown in the shadows. This model was sculpted with very defined cheekbones, so we want to make sure that we get the entirety of that cheekbone right next to her eye, but we're also going to make sure that we leave the Doombull in that shadow area right underneath it. We also really want to make sure that we get the forehead and the bridge of the nose. We're going to get the top of the chest, the chin. We're also not really worried about making sure we get the lips because we're going to be doing those in a different video. And the underbrow area right next to the eyelid we're also going to leave quite dark as well. There are going to be a few areas that we hit with a second, maybe even a third layer until we get a really saturated scrag brown color. And those are specifically the tops of the cheekbones, the tops of the forehead, and the nose. Here you can see the skin after we finished the application of the scrag brown. We're going to go ahead and move on to our next color, which is Rat Skin Flesh. We're going to continue to be even more selective with this next highlight. We really want to make sure that we get the areas right next to the eye very bright. So we're going to do this heavily on the cheekbones, the bridge of the nose, and the forehead. We're also going to get the top of the chest as well. But we're not concerned with making sure we get this on all of the areas of the skin. And once we finish the first highlight, we're going to go ahead and make sure this gets a second layer. Here's the skin after the rat skin flesh has been applied. I also noticed that she has an ear hiding back in her hair, so we're going to make sure that we go back and hit the ear with all of the flesh steps that we've done so far. We're going to do another highlight using Cadian Flesh Tone. I'm going to be applying this in some of the very same areas, the cheekbones, the top of the forehead, the bridge of the nose. I'm also going to catch the very point of the chin just to make sure that it doesn't get hidden, and the top of the chest. I'm going to be a little bit light with this color. I don't want to go too heavy because I don't want the skin tone to get too bright. Now that we have the basic colors down, we're going to do a little bit of shading. I'm going to use 2 of these shade colors at the same time so they kind of blend together a little bit. The first is going to be Reikland Flesh and the second is going to be Druchii Violet. I'm using both of them at the same time so they blend together better. I'm going to apply the Reikland Flesh along the areas where it meets with another part of the model, so along the hair, along all of the clothing. I'm also going to apply this along the bridge of the nose, underneath the bottom lip, in the eyelid, in the center of the chest, in the belly button, and also in the folds of the ear. And then while the Reikland Flesh is still wet, I'm going to use Druchii Violet, and I'm going to be applying that mainly to the eyelid, but also a little bit along the bridge of the nose, and anywhere I feel like needs a little bit more shadow. I really like using purple to shade my skin tones. I feel like it's very effective because it's a cool color that mixes really well with the reds and peaches in the skin. Once the glazes have dried, we're going to do one more highlight using Kislev Flesh. This is a very selective layer. We're only doing it in the very center of the nose, the very top of the cheekbone that's right next to the eye socket, and then the very center of the brow as well. And here you can see the flesh completed. It's a little bit of a non-traditional color scheme for Skarre, who's traditionally very pale, but it is one way to get a slightly darker, more olive skin tone. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to see more how-to videos, I have another one where I go through painting the lips and the eyes on this model in the MiniWarGaming Vault in the link down below in the description. If you don't already have a Vault membership, go ahead and click the link, start your 7-day free trial, and you can get access to my video as well as hundreds of other videos in the MiniWarGaming Vault. So go ahead, click the link, start your free trial, and happy wargaming.